And we will call the East Bay Charter Township Board meeting, regular board meeting, to order at 6:30 p.m. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we'll do roll call attendance.
Lyle?
Here.
Bartlett? S. Cortade?
Here.
M. Cortade?
Here.
Cook?
Here.
Walters?
Present.
And Friend.
Here. All right, agenda, review for conflict of interest. You see on the agenda, we, standard items, under the consent agenda, we do have an addition to the part-time employment roster, a change order for Jen's Park improvement. The emergency services budgets are presented, as well as an offer for employment for planning and zoning, the draft zoning ordinance, resolution to vacate a platted street, Lakeview Avenue, and a meeting room and public safety, public property safety draft policies. With that, does anybody have any conflict? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Is there approval of the agenda or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the East Bay Township Board of August 12th, 2024.
Okay, motion by Walters, support by Bartlett. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda and we'll move forward. Public comment, now is the time for public comment. And will you go over the directions for public comment?
Certainly. The purpose of the public comment is to give members of the public an opportunity to express their views and opinions to the members of this board. To maintain order and ensure fairness to every speaker, the following rules must be followed during public comment. Speakers will approach the podium and introduce themselves by stating their name and address, and then proceed to make their comment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes and is only allowed to speak once on the same matter. Communication previously emailed to the commission is not necessary to read aloud. Public comment at this public comment time may not be given to another member of the public. Any arrangement for speaking on behalf of others must be arranged prior to the meeting. When your time is at 2 minutes 30 seconds, you'll be alerted with a yellow signal to wrap up your comment. And at 3 minutes, you'll be alerted with a red signal, and the chair will ask you to conclude your comments. That is a synopsis.
Okay, thank you. If there are any public who would like to deliver a public comment, please make your way to the podium. And Mindy will move that mic, if you could, just over to the, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Oh, I didn't mean Mindy's mic, yeah, I meant that one, yeah. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. Gail Mason, 2612 Wilsey Road. My husband Dave is sitting in the back there. We just got notification that after 30 years living in East Bay Township on 7.7 acres, that we are in violation because we allow people to camp on our property. And I'm told that includes ourselves. If we want to put our motorhome in our back acreage and camp for a night or 2 or 10 or whatever, that it's a violation. And that if we continue to do so, we will be fined. We're not allowed to have our grandkids come over and set up a camp somewhere. We're not allowed to have family, relatives, strangers, anyone. There's just no camping allowed. I was told, I believe this young lady, are you the one? Yeah. That you folks are considering revising that because it doesn't make sense. It's not fair. So I'd like you to consider, please, that, people who want to use their own private property for their own private use should be allowed to do so without restrictions. We're not hurting anybody. We have had no neighbors' complaints. In fact, our neighbors think it's awesome when they see us out there camping. They come over, they stop by, and they say, "Hi, how you doing?" And we sit at a campfire, and they join us. And we've had a relative that's been there for 2 months because they came up to work in Traverse City. They got married 10 days ago, and now they're on their honeymoon. Their camper is still there. I had to call them and tell them that they need to remove their camper or we'll be fined. I think it's unreasonable, and I hope you people reconsider this. I have no idea why this was ever put into effect or when. Like I said, we've been there 30 years, and we've been doing this off and on for 30 years. More so recently because we're retired and we have nothing else to do. So we're home enjoying our property. So I hope you people will reconsider this, and if anyone in the audience has a similar situation, you could speak up. We do have friends that are aware, but we're starting tonight, hoping that you will hear our concern and help us out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? How are you? Good. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I get a little nervous sometimes.
That's okay.
I apologize.
That's
Andrea
okay.
Castle, 2536 Twin Bay Drive. So I'm here tonight just to introduce myself to the board and community. First, board, thank you for your service. As some of you may know, I, Andrea Castle, am running in the upcoming November election. Whew. Again, public speaking, it's not my strong suit.
That's
I'm
okay.
working
Just
on
take
it.
a deep breath. You're fine.
Anywho, I'm running in the upcoming election for a position on the East Bay Township Trustee Board. And that's all. I just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on. We also did, I will note, we also did have 3 letters sent to us that would be similar to public comment. They were an email, but Mary Thompson, Judy Nemitz, and Caitlin Felinski. So the board received all of those, but just wanted to mention those. Okay, with that, we'll go on to correspondence and reports. Excuse me. And in your packet, you do have the County Road Commission updates that I have for June, July, and August, as well as the Parkland News, Traverse Connects, growth barometer for the second quarter, treasurer's report, and supervisor's meeting log. So if you have any follow-up or questions on those, you can contact the person who submitted those. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And Ann, if you would go over the consent agenda. Oh, you know what? Hold on one second. Yes, please do. Thank you.
Okay. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent agenda, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. This evening, you have minutes from July 8th, 2024 regular meeting and July 16th, 2024 joint meeting. From the general fund, check numbers 18831 through 18894 in the amount of $244,810.17, with check numbers 18565 and 18810 previously approved. The emergency fund, check numbers 5677 through 5700, paid in the amount of $85,402.19. The receiving fund, checks numbers 2946 through 2947, paid in the amount of $214,450.72. The escrow fund, check numbers 2022 through 2026, in the amount of $15,882.57. The roads SAD fund, one check, number 118, paid in the amount of $500. There were 2 payrolls, June 30th through July 13th, check numbers 7714 through 7720, totaled $78,473.43. Payroll dated July 14th through July 27th, check number 7721 through 7727, totaled $75,862.12. Total payroll, $154,335.55, and total amount paid, $715,381.20. No proposed budget adjustments, and 2 other items, part-time employment roster addition and Jen's Park improvement change order number 1.
Okay, with that, is there anything that any member of the board would like removed from the consent agenda? Okay, is there any item the public would like removed from the consent agenda? Okay, we'll bring that back to the board for a motion for the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Okay. It is moved by Bartlett and supported by Cook to approve the consent agenda as presented. We'll do a roll call vote on that.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
M. Cortade,
Yes.
S. Cortade,
Yes.
Lyle,
No.
Friend.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to business before the Township Board. The first item on the agenda is the 2025 Emergency Services Budget, and we will start off with the fire. And we have Chief Paul Mackin here and the accountant, Kim. Kim, why is your last name? McCann, of course, here with us to go over the budget. Thank you for being here this evening. And I also will mention too, we do have on the agenda, including the multi-year funding, you do have a resolution on your desk. It's a little repetitive for us because we've already approved the Station 9 improvement and approved asking Metro for a partnership with that. But this is the resolution that is going to all 3 township boards regarding the repayment of the 50% from Metro over 3 years. Because it's split into 3 years, that involves multi-years, so it needs to go to each board. So we have that included as well as the budget. But Chief Mackin is here primarily for the budget, so let's start with that.
Thank you. Good evening. Okay. I'm going to just overview, when we started the process, this budget was similar to years past. We started the process and identified some of our challenges, just highlighted that in your packet. You should have the mission, vision, and values. Some of the challenges that we looked at for 2025, what do we have to deal with? And a lot of them were kind of the same that they had been before, but there were a couple new challenges that we're dealing with. Obviously, recruiting and retaining quality employees is still a high priority with the continued need to attract more part-time firefighters, ensuring that retention by providing our employees with competitive wages and benefit packages with respect to the demand for emergency services personnel. Very high demand, like a lot of industries right now. Remaining committed to a staffing model that meets the need of our growing community and our calls for service. We have applied for a SAFER grant to increase our daily staffing with 1 additional firefighter daily. The SAFER grant application was to hire 3 firefighters. In respect to the budget, that is a grant that would fully fund those hires, so there has been no increase in staffing in the 2025 budget. So that is, hopefully we can get that grant, and then, that'd be something that we can implement over some time. Implementing an attainable replacement schedule for our central frontline fire apparatus and equipment. The continued goal that we have is to standardize our fleet with lower overall age, kind of bring that overall age down, reducing risk and providing additional operational efficiencies. Additionally, we are planning in 2025 to develop a master facility plan accounting for our existing and any future facilities with respect to the growth in the community, our service delivery, and best practices. Additionally, we want to identify an equitable funding mechanism or mechanisms along with some guidelines to ensure success with that. That'll be a project for 2025. Reacting and responding to the increase in buildings of homes, apartments, assisted living facilities, and other businesses within the 3 townships. So that is also a challenge, the continued growth, not only operationally, but in Fire Prevention Bureau, our inspectional services, that demand is getting great. And then just a continued impact of inflation is unknown. There's the same as it has been for the last year. Again, continued increase of costs, similar to what you're dealing with township for our equipment, facilities, et cetera. So those are the challenges that we did identify. Putting the budget together, we're pretty happy with the process, working with Kim. She did a lot of the heavy lifting with the budget, but we did solicit some input from additional members within the organization and the administration, and we feel pretty comfortable with the budget. With that being said, I'll let Kim highlight a few of the accomplishments of the budget, or highlights of them, I should say.
So on page 4 at the bottom, you'll see this budget is, still remains at the 2.75 millage rate. We feel that we can manage with that millage rate and continue to maintain a healthy fund balance for that millage rate. On page 5 would be shows the allocation based on taxable value for each township. And it is a 10.08% appreciation from the previous year. On page 6 through 8 is the detail budget. The general fund is essentially a break-even budget. We do anticipate, if you look on page 8, putting 171,000 into our public improvement fund, which we anticipate to continue to increase our savings to put towards our capital needs, apparatus replacement, et cetera. And then you get back into page 9 is our projected, this is a 10-year projection as far as what we anticipate to borrow based upon our capital needs. That's reflected in page 9 and 10. And then in page 11 through 14 is our detailed capital plan, which is, somewhat of an estimate when you get into the later years as far as, we've spent a lot of time since Chief Mackin has taken over in identifying what our future capital needs are going to be, and we're going to continue to work on that. So, and then that brings you back to the actual summary budget, which is what you'll be approving today, which is on page 1 and 2. I think that's following, there's like a draft of the resolution in there. Oh, page 17, maybe page 17. Looks like this.
Okay.
Looks like this, so. So that's what we're asking this board to, it's been approved by the Metro budget, so we're requesting approval from the East Bay Township budget, East Bay Township as well.
Okay, great. The resolution for consideration is again, in your packet. It's the township packet at page 50, and that would be Resolution 2024-15. And obviously, we would be filling in the portions for East Bay Township, which would be the 2.244351 for the amount. Again, that's the 2.75 mils. Does the board member have any questions? Glenn, you might speak to the process that we went through with this.
Yes, we went through the whole budget setting, and it was passed unanimously by the whole board. There was no real disagreements on the way the budget was. It was very nice set up so that we could sit and read it and go through year by year. So thank you guys for the work that you put in to do that.
So just for clarification, we are looking to put this as a public hearing for September 9.
That's right, but we do need the resolution for support for Metro for their budget. Any other questions? Go ahead, sure, Mindy.
On the projected, which fire truck is the one we already ordered, but we don't have? Is that the 2026 one?
No,
It should be 2024.
It's 2024. We should be getting it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's the one we had to order early.
Yeah, yeah.
Early's finally here.
Yeah, early is finally.
Fall of 22,
Yeah.
that was ordered, and, the inspection will be on the 28th of this month.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably by the time it's all said and done, it'll probably be a couple weeks into September before it's delivered, it's here.
And it'll probably be time to order the next one.
I think we probably already needed to order.
I know.
So on page 42 and 43 of your packet, you will see, just going forward to the resolution on the dormitory cost share, you will see that that has a placeholder in this budget already. So you'll see that being transferred out of the general fund into the public improvement fund, and then that designation for payment with Station 8 at the $280,000 there. So that's included in this budget as a placeholder right now. And of course, as I mentioned, all 3 townships need to go through and do the resolution. But with that, we start with the resolution for the 2025 budget resolution for the Charter Township of East Bay, County of Grand Traverse, for the resolution that resolves us to a financial contribution of $2,244,351, and that we will disperse the revenues by May 15th.
And do we have a number for that resolution?
15.
15?
Yep.
Okay. I would make a motion to approve 2025 resolution for East Bay Township, number 2024-15 for Metro, for 2.75 mils with a total amount of $2,244,351.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, motion is made by Lyle and supported by M. Cortade. Any further discussion?
I just have one clarifying question here. It's maybe a dumb question, but I'm
No dumb questions.
not following this. On page 56 of our packet, I think y'all got them labeled, these are like summary sheets, page 1 and 2, it looks like these 2 tables. The 2 columns on the right on both pages show an increase in dollars and an increase in percentage. Are we looking at budget 24 over budget 25, or is that?
It's 25 compared to 24, so it's like, for revenues, it would be $285,000 increase.
Okay. I don't know, I guess the way I was looking at it, looked like it was a comparison of 23 to 24.
No, it's budget 24 to 25. You're talking about this page right here?
Yes, ma'am. Maybe I'm not looking at the right one, so, just for example,
Oh, maybe.
was it just miscalculated?
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, those don't equate. Maybe I didn't change the formula on that.
Is that where the contingency is also coming up with language?
No, it's just a strictly a budget 25 versus 24. It looks like it's still doing 24 to 23, which I think you're correct on that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I can correct that.
But otherwise, the middle column for budget
That's-
25
yeah,
is.
that's just
okay.
for informational purposes, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, because our expenditures aren't going up by the amount and the increase there. Okay,
Right.
that's fine. Okay. Any other questions or clarifications? Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote on that.
Who seconded?
Matt did,
Okay,
and Glenn made the motion.
yeah, I had that. Lyle?
Yes.
M. Cortade?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
S. Cortade?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
And Friend?
Yes. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the resolution approving the Metro payments to East Bay Township for the dorm room expansion at Station 9. You see the resolution here. Again, this is anything that's a multi-year payment needs to be approved. And so are there any questions or motion regarding this?
I will go ahead and make a motion for 2024-16 as the resolution number, approving the Grand Traverse Metro Emergency Services Authority payments to East Bay Township for dorm room expansions at Station 9.
Okay, is there support? Support by Lyle. Okay, there is a motion by S. Cortade, supported by Lyle. Any other questions or clarifications? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Ann?
S. Cortade?
Yes.
Lyle?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
M. Cortade?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
And Friend?
Yes. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for attending tonight. Okay, we will move on to the East Bay ambulance budget. Hi, Nick, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Doing well.
Good. All right, why don't you take us through your cover page, which goes over some of the top comments.
Yeah, so looking at our budget, we did see an increase of approximately 11% from our taxable value. However, we are going to ask for a 0.2 increase to our 1 mil, just due to our capital. We've been able to absorb a lot of those costs, but with that, we've drawn down our capital capital projections. So if you look at the capital sheets in the back, there's the 3 different options of the staying at the 1 mil, going to 1.1, and then going to 1.2. And you'll see with the 1.1s and the 1.2, we're still going to be under what we need for our capital projections, but that 1.2 will give us a happy medium with that.
And a lot of that rationale too is we've increased staffing for the 4 days, and we're increasing staffing in this budget as well. And then in the previous capital calculations, we didn't have the dorm renovation, so.
Yep, and like Beth said, we continue to monitor our reimbursements, reimbursements. As that, we all know that's always a struggle with what's going to come in. Moving forward, we'd like to increase the second truck to 7 days a week for next year. We're seeing a lot of good outcomes with that second truck now, and having the multiple calls at once. So we'd like to move that to 7 days a week instead of the 4 days a week, but still maintain that 12 hours a day
For
planning.
June through October.
And obviously, we're still continuing to evaluate that, but that's what we're seeing is that's paying off, and it's needed the other 2 days of the week, or other 3 days a week as well. We are looking at about a 10%, 3% COLA and a 7% market adjustment for our staff wages. A lot of our neighbors are doing massive increases, and we're still trying to stay at that happy medium. We're not looking to be the top because our benefits are good, but we're still looking to be at that happy spot. Other than that, our costs continue to increase as far as supplies and equipment, and we're just trying to budget for that.
And also, my error on the end where it said no other capital projects are planned, that was accurate when Nick forwarded this to me. But as we were looking at some of the grant opportunities, we're going to be putting in this year for a grant for Lucas, but it wouldn't be payable and we wouldn't purchase it until next year. So we added in the $25,000 that you see in capital. And I forgot to go back and change that on the cover sheet, so. So with that, we will look at for next year. This does have, the budget that's run through here does have the 1.2 mils in. So you'll see we have 1.417 for revenues and just under 1.2 for expenditures, leaving that additional fund balance at about 254, which will go into the capital fund. What Nick and I would suggest is that every year on an annual basis, we take what's equivalent to 0.2 mils and put that into a capital fund for East Bay Ambulance. Are there questions, clarifications?
I guess one question I would have is, and I don't know what the neighbors are doing for wages, the neighboring units. But when we look at that and we compare our wages to theirs, are we looking at benefits? So they've got as good a benefits as what we've got or better?
That's why we're coming in underneath them, because our benefits are better. But one of our neighbors is doing did a 12% in July, and we're only looking at 10%. We're still underneath of where they are, and our crews are happy, but we want to keep them happy so they're not going to look to go elsewhere.
Okay.
And this also hits paramedics that are part-time, that are part-time as well. If this goes forward, what you'll see in our wage adjustments in December, because remember, this doesn't take effect until the following year, but the wage resolution that we do every year on an annual basis would have it broken out by paramedics and EMTs. Right now, we've looked and we're pretty competitive with the EMTs. We're not suggesting a change there. But with the paramedics, we are suggesting an industry change with them.
So the EMTs would still receive COLA, whatever that shakes out to be, but they wouldn't get a market adjustment.
Correct. Yep. Other questions?
Yeah, just a comment. I always do a wage study around the county, and I'm waiting for the most recent information, which I will share with you. But what you're talking about does make sense.
And it's a struggle too with our other municipal partners because they don't necessarily have a strictly EMS system. They share with fire. But looking at some of the other industries too, that's where we sit.
Yeah. And some of the best comparisons we have are sometimes not even formal communication that we get, but just, what they're getting at, where they're working and so forth. This is the first look at it. We're not asking for approval of it. This will be back to you next month, but we would like to know if you would like any changes. As presented, it would be a 1.2 mil for public hearing next month.
Hey, Beth?
Yeah.
So this is a proposed, you said 0.2 mils increase on the high end? And under the scenario, sticking with the current millage rate, there looks like the fund balance is running a deficit by 2026, is that right, projected?
Yeah, so what happens when you take a look at our budget and you just pull out everything that is capital related or grant related, that type of thing, we're running on about a $20,000 difference, revenues over expenditures, and it's just not enough. Some years are better, depends on the run revenue, depends on how expenses, that sort of thing. But in general, and that's just not enough to support the capital needs that we have.
Sure. So, I know this is going to be a sort of a left field comment, but understanding the needs, costs are costs and they have to be covered. You have to be competitive to run a professional organization with wages. Has there been, and I think there has been some historical discussions, but has there ever been any more consideration to levying specific millages on hotels to support emergency services?
Yeah, I don't believe that we can do that through the state.
Legislative change,
Yeah.
legislative
Okay, all right,
change.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
that shows what I know.
If I can also add though too, Matt, if something happens to someone on those premises and we respond, we do bill them. Not the hotel,
individual.
but the individual.
Sure, sure.
And of course, they're typically not a resident, so they're billed at the full, the full cost.
Sure,
and
understood.
not-
Well, I mean, I guess kind of where I was going along those lines, just so that I understand better, if this is being brought back at a later date for, kind of a final decision, would you be able to break down and show us maybe this year to date, what, just boil it down to what calls you've run for East Bay residents versus non-residents? And I'm sure there's probably a trend there. I guess I'm just kind of surprised that the taxable values within the township with all the development and building that's going on hasn't kind of run in line with some of our increased cost on
Yeah.
the services here.
No, I understand what you're saying, and as a matter of fact, that's why I included the 1.1, because there is an opportunity that, depending on a lot of the variances that we have, 1.1 could do that, but we would probably have to be looking again within a year or two to see. And given the information I have, it's pretty probable that we'll still end up adjusting another 0.1 to get to that 1.2. So we thought you would probably want to do that in one step rather than two. But I think that where we're not seeing you're right, the increase in value helps, but remember that a lot of that's approved, but not yet on site. Like when we see a lot of the developments that go through, those are still paper developments right now.
Yeah, no, I.
And then the other thing is, you know, I mean, when we make decisions here at the board to increase staffing, to go to a second truck 4 days, to go to a second truck 7 days, for the capital needs, to have, you know, an echo and keep a truck on back, those to do the dorm renovations, those decisions all have ramifications, and those ramifications are the costs. And so like I said earlier, when we've looked at the capital needs before, previously, we didn't have the station dorms in there. We did not have the increased staffing levels in there. So, but we'll definitely bring you back the data that, that they can glean from that. Yes.
On the second truck, 7 days a week, June through October. Are we going 4 days a week the rest of the year, or?
No, we'll just maintain our primary truck that we have. It's just the increase in that summer months.
And aren't we gonna have a problem with staffing that if we don't have something the rest of the year?
We have done very well with our part-time staff now.
Okay.
And I think if we add a few more moving forward, we'll be okay. It's been pretty good for the summer.
Right, but after October, are we gonna
Are we going to lose some of
those
them? because
great
they're-
The ones that we've hired, we've had that conversation with of, hey, you know, come the end of that, we won't have much. We still have people that take vacations, obviously, but most of them were on board knowing that's coming and have not expressed the
They
discontent.
can ski more, right?
Something like that. It was a very transparent conversation. We brought them on, and not a lot of them have fought that.
Okay, any adjustments that the board would like us to look at? We'll bring definitely back that information. And is there a concurrence? We could do a motion. I'm not sure if we did one last year, and would we have done that on metros as well? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
I thought that would make clean if we did a motion and had.
Yeah, that's fine. We could certainly do that. If there is a motion to move forward with noticing the 1.2 mils.
I will make that motion to move ahead to a public hearing by noticing a 1.2 mil increase for 2025.
Not a 1.2 mil increase.
1.2 mil, which is a 0.2% increase.
Okay.
Yeah, don't give people.
Yeah, well, I'll give myself a heart attack too when I pay that tax bill.
Is there support? Okay, a motion by Escortate and support by Walters. Any questions or clarifications?
The motion is to issue public notice.
Issue public notice for 1.2 mils. Let's see.
Hearing on September 9.
Any additional questions? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, so we will then bring you back a 1.2 mil budget, which is what you have in front of you, so. Okay, not to backtrack, but do you want to go ahead and make a motion to do a public notice for the 2.75?
So moved.
Okay, for Metro.
Or,
Okay, motion is made by Escortate and by Walters to have a public, how did we say that? To post public notice for 2.75 mils for Metro. Any clarifications? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay. Not sure we needed a motion on that, but we'll just keep it that way so we
That'll do it.
don't have any problems with it. Okay, and with that, we will go over the community police officers, which is a very, very simple budget. You'll see the amount. Last year, I just increased it 5% because I don't know what the county will end up doing, and I don't know what's in their union contracts for the amounts, so I've just put in a 5% here. What did I do, a 5%? Let's see. Projected requested. Actually, we were, yes, I did, about a 5%. We were well within we'll be right up to that 205 this year. So we're increasing it about 10,000. So for next year, more than 5%. But at any rate, that'll be 215 for the contract services. The 17.5 is for the flock cameras, you'll remember. And then we do have money in there also for the phones that we have over at the station. And I'm sorry, that's why I was looking over here at I was looking at the expenses, not the revenues. So for the revenues, we were at 223.5, and the expenses at 233.4. That does bring us down by $9,900, but you'll know that we've planned on this for many years, and even when we planned on it, some years we ended up with a positive net revenue. So last year we did not. We are projecting using about 30,000 of that, and that's more than what we originally anticipated, largely because of the flock system. So next year we've got the flock built in and the contract. This is still at the same 0.26 mils. Any questions? Is there a motion to notice this at 0.26 mils for the police fund?
Make that motion.
Support.
Okay, the motion is made by Bartlett and supported by Cook. Any questions, clarifications? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, we've gotten through those three budgets. Really appreciate it. All right, we move on to an offer of employment. Claire, how are you doing? So a couple months ago, Planning and Zoning came to you, and the board approved a position, and noticing that, why don't you talk to us about the applicants and the offer of employment?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So as you'll recall, in May, you approved the position Planning and Special Projects Coordinator. We advertised the position on Michigan Association of Planning, on the township website, on the Michigan Works, Record Eagle, shared it pretty widely with local and regional planning networks. We received 4 applicants. We actually received one additional after the fact, but four applicants. 3 of them, 3 met the kind of minimum qualifications that we were looking at. So Beth and I did interview the 3 individuals. They were actually all pretty highly qualified candidates. One of them worked with previously in my time at Beck and Rader, so we had good interviews with everyone. Ultimately, we're making the recommendation to the township board to hire Sam LaSouza. And so over the past 15 months of his fellowship, he's consistently proven himself to be reliable, hardworking, very enthusiastic, and really works well with township staff, with residents. And so I'm personally super excited about the opportunity to continue to work with him beyond his fellowship, which is actually ending this week. So it's kind of nice timing to be able to offer that employment opportunity. So in your packet, there's a copy of the offer letter. As you'll see, 25% of the salary does come from the short-term rental fund. And so Sam has been working really since he started on short-term rentals and is really well-versed and up to speed on that program as well. So he'll continue with that. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's really all that I had.
Yeah, and I'll just note with that short-term rental program, that included a change in the software that we were using. So that meant a lot of working with that onboarding of that company and working with them on their customization for the township. So that took quite a bit. And then we have coming up is the new process that we're going through for the renewals, which begins this fall, where everybody is renewing now at once instead of the different dates.
I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So with the CDM position ending this week, are we anticipating the new position to start Monday?
Actually, I talked with Sam about that on the start date, and I was thinking that I had put it in here and edited it, but I don't see it, so.
We're looking looking at an August 27th start date.
Yeah, he was taking a little bit of vacation before then.
Okay. And I also want to make sure that it's acceptable that we are going to prorate vacation time for someone that's coming in with September through December.
Yep,
So I
that's-
just thought that would be appropriate, and you and I had the discussion and concurred that.
Yep. So that when someone's hired in, they're not getting their full year's worth of vacation initially. So we've had that as an issue before, and that needs to be rectified, and we're rectifying it. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to have Sam stick around with us. I think he's been a great asset to our community. The residents seem to really like him. He's got a lot of energy. So I would make a motion to accept the offer of employment to Sam LaSousa.
Okay, is there support? Support? Okay, very good. There's a motion by Escortate and support by Walters. Any further questions?
The 25% of the salary supported by the short-term rental, I guess it's fair to say that that percentage would probably decrease as licenses fall off through attrition to get down to the number.
So we're pretty close to actually where we think we're going to be adding, don't go crazy, public, but a license or two this year. So we really thought we were going to have a couple years until we tackled that. But it'll probably be the end of this year. No, the quantity of work is still really very similar based at is it 145 versus the 160 some that we were looking at. Those couple 10 different is a marginal difference. What we will find though is we're probably going to be a little bit heavy in that this year, so it may be more than 25% this year. If we do find that, we'd bring that back to the board to adjust that, similar to a budget amendment. And if it were less next year, we would do the same thing too. But we had talked about it a little bit. I know Sam and I talked about it in depth about if we felt like, the 20% was right, 25% the number, without tracking every minute, but generally knowing the workload. And we felt that 25% that we estimated at the very beginning felt pretty accurate for what we were doing, overall. Because remember, that also includes in years when, that also includes during the year, which will be heightened this coming year because we were onboarding the new software, so it was a little difficult leaving one software and starting with the other. It will also include identifying those that are advertising that don't have licenses and making sure and tracking those down and that they're noticed and doing that. So he'll be handling the first part of that. When it gets to a ticketing part, he'll be drawing in Bill Vandercook as well with that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't so much focused on the workload so much as the salary
Yeah.
piece. I didn't know if it was going to have budget implications in the future if sounds like we're close to the number now, if that's what that 25% is based off of. If there's,
And I think we're also going to be, from a revenue standpoint, in just the short-term rental program, we're going to be taking a closer look at the license fees. too,
okay.
moving forward.
That's all. I was just wondering if there was going to be a future impact to that.
Yeah, and just, not that you asked, but just so you all know, the way that we do that is we charge that full salary in the planning and zoning, but then we'll have a transfer in and revenues and transfer out for the expenses. So we'll just do that through the interfund transfers. Okay, let's see. We had a motion by Escortate and support by Walters. Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay. Sam's here, isn't he? Hi, Sam. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you. It's been great having you for a CEDM fellow, and we look forward to you working here. And Claire, if you would let CEDM know, and I mean, I think I have too, just how valuable that we found that opportunity. I've been encouraging every other township who's RRC enrolled to apply for it because I think it's a fantastic program. So, okay, with that, we will move on to the draft zoning ordinance. And this is in your supplemental packet, as the other two budgets were. And this was a note from Glenn that had said he wanted to go over some of the items from the zoning ordinance. I've included his note that said he wanted to go over a few things on the proposed new zoning ordinance. Like to see the temporary dwellings, lighting, and break walls on the lakes be revisited or removed or looked at later. So when Glenn mentioned that he wanted to talk about, a couple of the things that he hadn't noticed in the zoning ordinance prior to the joint meeting, I know obviously he could have potentially reached out to the planning commission by public comment or by letter, just like anybody else in the public can. But I didn't want just one board member's, perspective to go there. I think it should be brought to this board like we did at the joint meeting where we give them feedback. And so I thought it would be good to bring anything additional here. And I think I also reached out to let anybody else know if there was something else that they missed, because, we did have a joint meeting, but this is a pretty hefty document with a lot of details in it. So if anyone had anything, I do want to be cognizant of, and I mentioned this in the packet, I don't want to necessarily rehash things, but deal with some things that are new that we weren't able to give feedback on. So with Glenn, with that, do you want to kind of kick stuff off?
Well, I just, I had these 3 things here that I just wanted to, and I thought maybe end up having another joint meeting with Planning Commission going back over it, because I can tell you my point of view on this stuff here, but that doesn't help the Planning Commission.
Well, I think, for one, we tape these, obviously, and so every planning commissioner, and we can even alert them sending the piece of video on. Because I think from the joint meeting, while it was good to have everybody together, and that was useful, I think in following up on just a couple smaller issues, that we can just do that in this instance, because it's going to be difficult scheduling. It's so hard to schedule.
I don't have a problem going over these.
Sure.
Okay, temporary dwellings. The people brought up tonight, they got 7 acres out there. Having your family camp out in a tent, I don't see a problem. What I have a problem looking at, when you start getting into places like Pine Grove area, and you got people staying in campers in yards, or you just set up vacant property and set up camping. There's the campgrounds that we got around, we got a ton of campgrounds if somebody needs to go camping. As far as kids going out in the backyard and camping in a tent overnight, I don't think this has anything to do with that. What I'm looking at is deeper down. When you open something like this up, that you're opening up the whole township for whether you got one lot or you got several. You can have vacant lots and have campers sitting there for tents, campers, or whatever. That's a concern. I just wanted to bring up that concern.
Sure. Let me just clarify. So with the temporary dwellings, are you saying, and I think I remember from the previous meeting, you mentioned you would prefer them not to be included in the zoning ordinance?
Right, exactly.
So you would want them not included, which then means that it would not be a potential use, correct, Claire?
Yeah, if they weren't included, it would be the current policy.
See, the
Which-
problem that we got, or at least my personal opinion on this, if you're saying because it isn't in there that the kids can't go out in the backyard and camp, I totally disagree with that. For the simple fact, if you're gonna put it in, you open up the whole area, and then we got problems like we had with short-term rentals. You can end up with one area, and let's use Pine Grove because that got hit the hardest. You can have them all down there, people camping. I don't think that's what the intent of it is. And I was surprised when I heard that, your kids can't go out in the backyard and camp.
I don't think we've ever had a violation or even a letter go out regarding kids camping in the
Exactly.
backyard.
And that's why I say if we didn't have this, we still wouldn't have any letters going out. Leave the sleeping dog alone.
Yeah, I think that I think with this specific provision, it's more can I come up and stay on my property for a long weekend? Can I, those types of questions that we're getting, as opposed to, can my child set up a tent?
Yep, so you were suggesting that it stay out, which does not allow people to camp on their property.
People that come up and camp on their property, and they camp up to a year, right?
The way we have it drafted right now is they can stay for 7 consecutive days, but not to exceed 60 days in a calendar year.
And how would we ever keep track of that? Would they have to come in and get a permit?
No, it's
So-
really, a lot of the way that we do enforcements is we've got the rules in place, and then if we oftentimes will have evidence that someoe's been there 3 months, well, that's clearly a violation. Or we have evidence that someone's been there for 2 weeks and haven't moved it, that's a violation. So it's more like you put the structure in place, and then you use that as a tool to enforce.
So let me go back to, we did discuss this at the Joint Planning Commission meeting, and what we have here is temporary dwellings. Accessory buildings, this was in the minutes, accessory buildings without a residential use on the site was discussed. And Carter said that requirement has not changed in the new ordinance. Temporary dwellings cannot be rented out, but many agreed that the 60-day limit was too long. It was agreed that the Planning Commission would review this. So I guess my expectation based on that is that the Planning Commission would look at the 7-day number and the 60-day number, the 60-day number, I guess, and look at potentially revising that. That's what I have based from the previous discussion.
Okay.
Well, I sat on the subcommittee, and we discussed this for quite a while. And I think we come to a consensus that what's written there is what would be appropriate. The thing you got to remember is that we are using permissive zoning. Permissive zoning states that unless there is permission from this township, you cannot do it, period. So that's where the you can't camp in your backyard thing comes, because it's not in the ordinance. So you have to write the ordinance to allow for those uses. It's something I've never understood how it ever come about, but that's the way it is, okay? So, you can say, well, we'll look the other way if someone's camping out in the back in a tent. Again, I don't see a problem when someone comes up and they're paying taxes on a piece of property and they want to camp on it. I don't see the concerns about, they're going to just open up the thing and pour raw sewage out and whatever. I can ask everybody in here, none of you guys would do it, I'm sure. So I really struggle with the idea that we want to limit someone's personal property rights when it's something as simple as using a camper to camp in.
Okay, but if I understand the zoning ordinance, the way this is put in there, if I own a piece of property, let's say I got a friend downstate that wants to come up and camp on my property, that's allowed with this.
When you say with
That's-
this, clarify what this is.
With this temporary dwelling.
The current or the future?
Yes.
The future zoning ordinance.
Well,
Or the draft.
the draft.
Draft.
See, that's where I personally look at it and wonder if we're opening a can of worms, because we'll have people coming up and camping on other people's property.
With the owner's permission, and I don't see the problem there.
Well-
What's the difference if it's my family in a camper, or if it's my cousins that come over and that's in a camper? It's still regulated. They can't do all these other things. I don't see the concern myself.
Okay.
I mean, that's been where I've been on it.
The one thing I will mention, just when you look at our short-term rental ordinance, the short-term rental ordinance only allows transient rental of a dwelling unit. It defines a dwelling unit not to include, hotel, motel, a camper, a tent, a houseboat, those types of things. So we do have clear policy direction in our short-term rental ordinance that you can't rent out your yurt, those types of things. We have received a few complaints recently about those activities going on, and so Bill has been very proactively working through the enforcement side, and it's really just a few properties. So we have, we're monitoring all of the rentals through Hip Camp and other platforms. And so I think when I spoke with Bill today, there's 3 right now that he's working with. So
Okay.
it's not, from our perspective, not a proliferation of those.
I'm glad you made that clarification, because regardless if this is allowed, that doesn't mean that they can start to short-term rental those items, those type of.
Okay, next thing was lighting. And the way that I understood it, that this would be a police power ordinance, which means that there's nobody grandfathered in. So we go through the whole township, and most of the older residents, the lights probably wouldn't pass the dark sky. Am I interpreting it right or no?
So what I took away from that discussion is that for now, we're leaving the draft ordinance as is, which regulates all commercial, multifamily, industrial development, has specific dark sky requirements. Right now, residential lighting is exempt, and so we are, from my understanding in the policy direction, we're keeping it that way. And staff is going to look at more proactive ways for outreach and education with residents about dark sky. And we've got a lot of resources that we're looking to share over the next several months. So we're going to start out with the kind of education and outreach, and can always revisit that.
Okay.
And that is consistent with what's in the minutes from the July 16th meeting.
Okay, the other thing was break walls on all lakes, and anti-waves, I should say, whatever, wake law, no wake. Here's the problem with apparently they have what they call wake boards. I don't even know what they are, but what I'm told is they can fill them with water and get going across, and they create bigger waves coming in. The thing is, there's a lot of our lakes that the sod and everything gets washed into the lake. So I guess break walls, I would think, that would protect that. I don't live on the lake, I'm just,
Yeah, so I guess I think that there's 2 things there. One is we are, with our draft ordinance right now, we are regulating retaining walls. So with the new ordinance, we're going to require that our township engineer permits any new retaining wall and basically verifies that the retaining wall is required for the structural integrity of either the house or key infrastructure on the property. Retaining wall is different from a break wall. So a retaining wall is anything landward of the ordinary high water mark. With a break wall or a seawall, that's anything waterward of the ordinary high water mark, and we aren't regulating that in our draft ordinance. We're just deferring to.
I misspoke then, it'd be the retaining wall, it's to hold the waves from pulling in the sod.
Yep, so with the retaining wall, part of the policy discussion behind regulating those differently than we currently do is we have just a tremendous amount of landscaping that's going in on a lot of these properties, and just substantially altering the banks. And oftentimes it's so that they can get their, patio or kind of the platform that they're looking for. And so the intent behind it was, let's not substantially alter the shoreline and the
slope.
kind of the natural, the slope, the natural shoreline unnecessarily, and with the understanding that sometimes, to get the home in, to keep the home up, those types of things, the critical infrastructure, even if your septic system is for some reason, near a steep slope. But But that was the discussion behind that.
One other thing that I didn't have on there,
Yeah, can we just hold, I have a question on that. So retaining walls are being regulated.
Yeah, currently, we just defer to soil erosion, so our ordinance, we have no regulation there. Our current ordinance says, as long as you get a permit from the county, you can put in a retaining wall.
And so now we will have, what, a go-through wade trim? Is that for what areas and what properties?
Any environmentally sensitive area,
Okay, okay.
as, defined in the ordinance, which generally that's going to be on your steep slopes and your area within 50 feet of a water body.
And then the break wall, which is, right up the way it's on the water, dividing the water between the land. The break wall, we're not regulating those, and those are by Eagle only?
Those will continue to be permitted through Eagle.
Okay.
okay. The one other thing, and I read through the ordinance, I'm used to the old ordinance, the way it's laid out. It's a little harder for me.
Yeah.
Old people, you can't change. But anyhow, on the five lots per acre, 5 buildings per acre, which they got to be 65-foot minimum width.
In low density.
Okay. That is just in the growth boundary, or is that in the whole township?
That is only within the growth boundary because it's
With
only a
water and sewer.
density residential.
Thank you. That's what I thought I read,
And
but,
if you have a parcel that's in the growth boundary, but it's not hooked up to water and sewer, you still have the existing requirements of,
Okay.
I think it's 150-foot width and.
okay, thank you.
And then one thing, just to make sure everyone's aware of, talk about the difference in the dock, the dock permitting.
Docks in the deck.
Mm-hmm, docks and the decks, yep.
I don't have that in front of me right now.
Oh, okay.
The way that our ordinance is drafted right now, that the new ordinance will permit one waterside deck up to 200 square feet in surface area. And then I believe we're also permitting docks not to exceed 200 square feet total.
And right now,
We're not specifying the layout of the,
shape.
of the docks.
and we didn't do docks currently.
Currently, we basically say that the dock just has to be set back 10 feet from the property line. And then with our decks, we don't have a limit. So you can basically, it can't exceed 200 square feet, but we have had people go in and say, well, I want 4 that are all 200 square feet. So they put in multiple waterside decks. So now we've clarified only one.
Okay. Claire's gonna get me tomorrow for asking her a question without the zoning ordinance in front of her.
I memorized all 300 pages.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Just real quick, kind of crunching numbers on the scenario, were you saying 200 square feet for a dock and 200 square feet for a deck?
I know that it's 200 square feet for a deck. I have to double check, but I think for a dock, it's also.
So can you combine that?
What qualifies as a dock?
Yeah, so we do define them differently, and a deck is landward of the
Right.
ordinary high water mark, and the dock is water.
I guess I'm
waterward.
splitting hairs here, but if I wanted a really big deck and I was limited to 200 square feet and all I had to do was put 6 feet of 2-foot wide dock out, then I could accommodate, 180 additional square feet of deck, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
She'll know more after she can read what she has.
Okay.
But you can follow up with her tomorrow on that. Any other items that we won't necessarily quiz Claire on, but that anybody wanted to bring up?
On the tent conversation, I know this is normal practice in your role to look at other ordinances around the area. What do some of the other townships around here say about tents?
There's a lot of townships that allow camping on the property, similar to what we're looking at. So up to 45 days in a calendar year, not to exceed 30 days at a time. Some of the more rural townships are more lax about it, but there were a number of townships that we took a look at that had similar types of provisions.
There's been a couple conversations about, it depends on the size of the property as well. I just want to, before we take this back to planning commission, I just want to get the pulse of everybody on that discussion, because, you know, if you talk about a lot in Pine Grove versus a 7-acre parcel, to me, there's a huge difference there in the effect on the neighbors. But I just wanted to see how everybody else feels about that comment, because we have, I know that was discussed at the planning commission level, that maybe that we have to look at the size of the parcels before we, you know, finish this thing up. So I just want to get everybody's pulse on that.
Have you looked at it, have you thought about looking at it by zoning district too? They've thought about that?
We have discussed both, and I think, I do have that written down as a note, just to look at
Well, and I think it becomes difficult, too, if it is just your grandkids wanting to tent camp and you live in a subdivision or a small neighborhood. Again, property owner rights, but still, I mean, I've got over 10 acres. If my grandkids want to go and camp in the back 40 of the 10 acres, it shouldn't bother anybody. We have to remember they're paying the taxes on it's their property. I get all of that. But maybe it is, I don't know, I'm struggling because I have a conflict when it's people's property, but it's also the neighbors that are abutting those properties in those specific locations. We're not all one big subdivision.
One size doesn't fit all.
It does,
I don't
it
think.
definitely doesn't.
Well, one example that comes to mind where I think that there's some point at which it becomes reasonable and ridiculous. But sometimes when people are building homes, we'll find that, they're doing some of the work themselves, right? And so we've had this on properties before where they parked a camper and they're living in the camper while they're building the house. Well, that might be okay if you're building the house and you're coming up to do tile work or install your cupboards and you're doing it and you're there for a week or two. But it's a whole different thing if you park on that property and you're there for a year building a house. So there's got to be some threshold or time, parcel size, something. I guess maybe not in fairness, I thought that the planning commission may hash that out based on this feedback.
Well, that's why I asked for, give me the pulse of this board.
Well,
You're breaking the law every year, right?
just an example, I lived in the Pine Grove subdivision for 20-plus years, and we had our camper in our driveway, and my kids slept in the camper. My daughter, when she came home from college, slept in it most of the summer because it was just something we enjoy as a family to sleep outside. So, and, my father-in-law built his house on Avenue D and parked a camper there for over a year. Now, that was 45 years ago. Well, no, 40 years ago. So, it's a while ago, but no, he had the only vacant lot on the whole street, and he parked the camper there. He was building the house himself, and that was a way to come in and eat lunch and go back out. He wasn't living there. He wasn't staying there. He stayed down the street. But so there are those types of things. So I have a hard time saying, no, you can't do that, even in the Pine Grove sub. So I get it, but I also, I'm also the one that doesn't want somebody, running their sewer line out. And, one of our renters in the Pine Grove sub wanted to do just what we were talking about, rent out their spot in the driveway, and it's like, no, you can't do that. There was I didn't even think about the township. I just like, no, I don't want that on my property. I don't want that for my neighbors, but, so I have a hard time saying no no carte blanche, because, yeah, you're right. I mean, we camp on our property now. I go out on the weekends and sleep in my camper because I like it.
To go on with that, is there anything in here that says that you can't rent out a space for someone to camp on? Yeah, see?
Short-term rental.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
Right.
so that's
So
not
it's
really a
there.
concern, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I liked that point being brought up because it is covered. You can't do that. We've already got that on the books.
And with the time frame on the camping, then you can't do a long-term rental in it either.
Right.
So because someone would say, well, it's not a short-term rental, it's a long-term rental. They were there for 60 days.
You would need
Well,
an occupancy permit for dwelling unit for
Yeah.
rental.
I guess the question I'd have, did the committee or the planning commission look at what we're talking about? Somebody got acreage, somebody got a 50-foot lot, where one size doesn't fit all? I mean, did they discuss all that?
Yeah, that's what Mindy said is,
We've talked about it, but, and then we talked about it again at the joint, and we haven't revisited it yet. So we haven't talked about
Okay.
the ordinance since our joint meeting. We have a,
We're revisiting it the 20th of August, and so I think just based on this feedback, we'll have like a few different policy options, some more specific bullets for the planning commission to consider and discuss.
Sure, go ahead.
So I just, to address the comments that we heard earlier, our current zoning ordinance, not the draft, does it allow for what uses are happening, or does it not?
It does not allow for really any overnight staying and anything besides like a designated camping site, like at
because it's
Timber
not
Ridge
addressed at
or-
all in the current.
Okay, because of the permissive
Right.
and the omission of that.
Right.
Yeah, I think there is a section that says temporary dwellings, and it says, with the exception of, like farm workers, you shall be in a designated campsite.
Yep. Okay, clear as mud for you. Okay.
Maybe I'll leave the charge on the 20th.
if I'm here.
The 20th of August.
Any other items?
So can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
So the residents that made the comment that they were in violation, is that something that will be, since there's discussions on this, is that something that's on hold? For somebody getting a violation letter or something at this point?
We are actively enforcing right now on that, so.
Okay.
But also communicating to them, to some of the property owners that the township is looking at the ordinance. So there was, the public comment that was tonight was based on the township enforcing, as well as also educating on the policy discussion that's underway.
I think the Planning Commission's going to be hearing public engagement on both sides, probably, is what I would guess. Okay, all right. With that, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Claire, appreciate it. A resolution to vacate the platted street. So we have a request, and I think, is Doug here? Hi, Doug, how are you? Good. This is Lakeview Avenue. This has been a long process that they've been working toward. Wildwood Park was the original plat, and you can see it had a Lakeview Avenue in it that was then later a pintail, and that has not materialized as a road. So in looking at property that property owners wanted to sell and so forth, they needed to vacate or abandon basically the road and amend the plat. So to amend the plat, they need a resolution from the road commission and the township board to abandon the road. And you can see that the road commission actually has already done that some time ago, a long time ago. Hi, Jesse, you were with Mitchell?
Mitchell and Associates,
So with Mitchell and Associates, who has surveyed this property. So on page 27, and I did contact Peter about this, and he said, look, both township and the county have a vested interest in the roads. And so you'll need a resolution from both. And then we looked a little further, and again, the county had already abandoned the road. So really, they just needed the township resolution. And Peter's recommendation was have their attorney draft it, which Craig Elhart did draft this one. And the only thing I think, it says upon a motion made by Forest Lakes Bible Church, so we would just cross that out and we'd actually, put our board members in there. But does anybody have any questions for Jesse or for myself? Or are we comfortable with the resolution? We would be Resolution 2024 or we did 15, 16? No, we did 16 too.
15, so this would be 17.
17, because we had a resolution for,
We had two of them, reviews 15
that's
and
right.
16
Yep,
this
yep,
evening.
okay. So this would be Resolution 2024-17, which would be an amendment to East Bay Resolution 94-3.
Yeah, my only question on it is, just looking at the map, this Lakeview Street goes not only across, it goes across several lots between North Spider Lake and Mallard Street. Are we looking to abandon that whole section, not just the lot that it crosses?
Correct, and that, that was suggested by the state attorney general
Yeah.
to include the other property. So the vacation will go all the way to the north side of Spider Lake Road, and that was altered in the draft judgment to do all that.
Just up to this Mallard Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it covers.
So it doesn't go beyond that? Okay.
Goes to the south line of that other street. That probably will get vacated also at some point in the future because it's never been built.
Right.
And they have, Craig is included in that resolution. It says the portion of Pintail Drive platted as Lakeview Avenue, 66 foot wide, from the extended north right-of-way line of Wildwood Avenue, AKA North Spider Lake Road, to the extended south right-of-way of Mallard Street, located in the Wildwood Park subdivision.
Yes, there was a resolution back in the 90s, and the state attorney general just asked that we could get another one, since how it's been quite a amount of time without applying the title. The step that was skipped in the 90s was they never filed a quiet title lawsuit in the county circuit court to vacate all of the public interest. And now that's what's happening. So after a couple of years, we're to the final step.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
Does any of that action, the proposed action, landlock any of these parcels?
No. And all of the surrounding property owners are served notice by the county circuit court to protest vacation orders, and all of that has already transpired. And there was no one protested it. So this is, and including the township never protested it. So this is just a matter of getting it T crossed and I dotted for the state attorney general, so they know that the township is still comfortable with this.
So why has this got maybe in Forest Lake Bible Church?
That was a question
That's
I had
what-
as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry?
That's what it was, the little church right across from, used to be Elderoo, now it's
Right.
whatever. Yeah, that was the Forest Lakes Bible Church. And then they moved.
Right, I know, but I'm just,
But if it's an East
Why
Bay
is it-
resolution, why is it
yeah,
always
why
referring
is
to
it-
that?
I think if you look in the other resolution, it might be mentioned that way. I'm not sure.
As far as the person who is doing the resolution?
yeah. It says whereas Forest Lake Bible College, now known as Life Point.
Yeah, and I think
is
that,
amending.
that is, you see the upon motion made by, it also includes that down at the bottom.
I know.
And so if we strike that and whereas East Bay Township is amending the East Bay Resolution 94-3, and then all of the rest of it
It's fine, but,
Down
yeah.
to-
is fine. It's just those two.
Right.
And
I'm-
Craig isn't a municipal, Craig isn't a municipal
The
attorney.
motion would be taken out.
Well,
Yeah.
Maybe they
yeah.
gotta make the motion for us.
Well, they were on the bottom, yeah. So no, that's fine. So are you making the motion,
Yes,
Glenn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll support it.
Okay, so motion is made by Bartlett and supported by Lyle.
I'm just going to ask that my full name be put here. It's, instead of Sue Cortate, it should be Suzanne. But
Well,
that's
you
a
can
clerical
adopt that
correction.
because you can go in and put that in. It's on the shared
Is this
drive.
it's in Word format?
I don't know. I don't know that it is in Word format, but you can still change it in Adobe. Yeah.
I'll make sure you get an email. You're going to amend this and then have Beth sign it and get it notarized.
Yeah, if you just, it's fine. We can take it from probably what we have. If we can't, we'll let you know.
I just thought it should be consistent with our other resolutions.
Well, then we would change it completely because it's not.
Okay.
But, you know, changing every resolution, we change almost all of them, but not every.
As a bookkeeping suggestion, if anyone comes to you and asks for something like this, put something in there that asks them to finalize the process through circuit court and Laura, so that it actually gets finished. Because the title of the street is not yet severed from the public unless they do an amended plat through circuit court.
Okay.
Otherwise, these township resolutions
Don't
don't finish anything.
So it needs to be recorded.
It needs to have an amended plat.
Well, you know, most people don't plat anymore, so they're mostly site condos.
Deal with plats, is to amend a plat.
Yeah, okay. So we have Amendment 2024-17, moved by Bartlett and supported by Lyle. Any additional questions?
Did you say you're going to strike the Forest Lakes Bible Church?
Yeah, that goes to East Bay Township.
The only reason I say that is that's the way it's referred to in this document from the state of Michigan.
Where are you at? What page are you on?
Page 18,
The draft judgment.
in the court, Circuit Court of the County of Grand Traverse, it states it as the Forest Lakes Bible Church, also known as Life.
Sure, they're the plaintiff, but the resolution that we're amending is an East Bay Township resolution. And so they can't amend our resolution, so we're amending.
Yes, I know, but I just don't want any confusion that,
If there is, we'll just bring it back and repass
you
it
know,
as a
I get so
different
tired
one.
of that. Oh, we'll just do it out of this. No, it should be done right the first time.
Well, you know what? This is what legal counsel provided us. However, the motion, it says, would be made by Forest Lakes Bible Church. And that makes no sense.
No, you-
And neither does Forest Lakes Bible Church amending our motion. So I do believe we're doing it the first time. However, if there is an error, there is a method for remedy.
Well, if you look at page 20 of 34, it says, whereas Exhibit A attached here too is a copy of the resolution adopted by East Bay Township that vacates Pintail Drive. And what we're looking at is Exhibit A and the proposed resolution. So the court document references Exhibit A as the East Bay Township vacation. So I believe we are doing it correctly.
Correct.
We filed that judgment, but we were filing motions in the circuit court, which is, I guess, different than the proceedings of this board.
Yep. So any further questions? And we'll do a roll call vote?
Oh, let's see, Bartlett,
Yes.
Lyle,
Yes,
S. Cortate,
Yes.
M. Cortate,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
and Friend.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll get you a copy of the resolution. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. You take care. Okay, we have 2 policies. These are not for adoption tonight. They are just for review, and we will bring them back next month likely. This is a meeting room policy and a public property safety policy. In particular, the public property safety policy was brought to my attention when I attended a Fahey Schultz conference downstate, where they had talked to us about the constitutional audits that are being done at different municipalities. I hadn't heard of them, but apparently they are done.
There was one that happened at Grand Traverse County
There-
several months ago.
Yep, they've had a couple, I think. But that was the other place that I had mentioned it was that it had been done at the county. So I have reached out, as it says in here, looking at MTA information, fellow townships policies, because why reinvent the wheel, as well as been in touch with Fahey Schultz regarding their recommended policy. So that is where we have these 2 drafts. We do have them potentially adopted later by a resolution. I drafted them. I had Tracy and Sue review them, and the result is what you have in front of you. I will mention that we did have communication regarding, let me go to the spot. Hold on one second. On the safety policy. And that was questioning the fact that in the public safety policy, there is a section 4, filming without prior notice. And so there's some distinction here. I think that we can change it to make it more clear to the person who reads it. However, this is not incorrect the way that it's written, in that, number 1, statute always takes precedence over township policy. No matter what. And then you'll notice that, of course, with the severability, that you always have statute take precedence. Also, the policy is requiring notice, not approval. So where she mentions, where the person mentions that the Open Meetings Act says that the must depend on prior approval of the public body. This is talking about notice, not approval. And then the statute goes on to say, in that part that was quoted in our letter, further down in that section, it goes on to say, however, a public body may establish reasonable rules and regulations and in order to minimize the possibility of disrupting the meeting. And so, of course, in practice, and this would be one of those, section 4. However, in practice, what we've always done is if anybody wants to tape the meeting, they're more than welcome. We tape them ourselves every meeting that we have. But we always just make sure that they're not blocking or providing cords all over the place or anything like that for people to trip on. So we just make sure they're not blocking anyone and not causing any hazard. But what I think we can do, this portion, section 4, while it doesn't violate that portion of OMA, I think we can go back and make it more clear that what we're really talking about in this area specifically, it's more targeting towards the public areas. So you'll notice that it says, shall not photograph, auto record, video record to capture, access personal, private, blah, 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 blah. And it talks about distances from stations, desks, counters, or service windows, where third parties conduct business with township employees. That's where we're really talking about notice to
I was going to say, it's
record.
not necessarily the public meetings, it's
Right.
more the office spaces.
Right, exactly. So we can make that distinction. Like I said, while this would not be incorrect to do, because it wouldn't be counter to the Open Meetings Act, we can make it more clear. I can see why someone would draw that conclusion. But other than that, yep.
I'm just gonna ask, it seems, was there something here a couple of years ago or something where somebody went into, whether it was a county or something, and
Yeah.
just started, and that's what
It's the county building, yeah.
Through multiple floors
Okay.
of the building.
So the other item that I would change and bring back is if you look at Exhibit A, which has the map of the building, there is the most north portion of the green, that shows where the kitchen used to be, which is no longer a kitchen. So we would shade that as red. It's just a small portion of that block that we would shade as red. Yep. But other than that, I think we would, unless anyone has any questions or suggestions, we would bring back the same two policies for the board approval. And actually, I did include for the meeting room, the page that we would use, the type of information we would request. This isn't necessarily being approved as part of the policy. This is just, to give you an example of what we would look at requesting online, how we would set up the page.
So it might be similar to the pavilion rental.
Yes, and if you want to check out on YouTube, which I found out at this meeting, and look up these type of audits, what happens is there are some of them on there, and I pulled up one of them, completely reasonable. I mean, you would probably have the person come up to your counter and you would be like, oh, okay, yes, you're looking around, what is the public area? Fine, and we would be pleasant and accommodating. But there are some who do this audit who intentionally try to antagonize, make employees feel threatened or nervous about safety, and they intentionally do that trying to provoke a reaction because their YouTube counts go up. So they get that, the YouTube counts go up, and then they make more fun on their funding for YouTube. So,
So you're going to bring this back in September?
yeah, yeah.
If this is passed by the board, would a similar map be posted around here? Or is it just going to be part of the policy?
It'd just be part of the policy. I mean, we would have that available at the front desk so that if they ever encountered that, they could give somebody the policy and show them that. Yeah. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, we'll bring those back, and I appreciate Tracy and Sue's help on that, as well as Fahey, Schultz, and the other townships who don't even know that they helped. And I appreciate Caitlin's question. That's a completely, logical question. So with that, we do come to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there any public comment? Hi, Sam, how are you?
Hi, guys. Sam Lasusa, East Bay Township resident and now East Bay Township staff. Thank you guys for voting on me and approving me. I'm looking forward to working with all of you guys and continuing to do all the work that we did during the fellowship and keep pushing that stuff forward. So, thanks, guys.
You know the best part? You don't have to be nervous for your first day on the job.
No, I already know. I know all the things.
But you do have to bring donuts.
Yeah,
Yeah, do I get messed with in a second?
right. Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Just a comment on your camping deal,
Sure, could you introduce yourself?
less hints. Tracy knows me, we all on Sharman Road.
Okay,
Having worked as a contractor for some big corporations, it's not uncommon for people to have 3 weeks of vacation if they had property here and wanted to come out. Your proposed thing says 7 consecutive days. And I think the DNR allows you 14 days at a state forest campground on the same lot. And then I'm not sure if they want you to move to a different campground or just a different lot. But 7 days isn't much. Just as a comment on what's going on. There may be a better way of regulating it, or, they've been there so long, they gotta pay taxes.
Thank you.
In back pocket now, there's another
another thing. But there may be some options as good as what you fix date on stuff. And like the comment, how do you know how many days they've really been there? And if it's theirs or whoever's properties are not charging them, maybe it's that. Something to
Okay,
think about.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, seeing no further public comment, our next meeting is, if memory serves me, September 9th. So we'll see everybody there. And if there are no objections, we stand adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.